Welcome to the MyBusiness Podcast, where we sit down with local businesses and we talk about who they are, where they come from, and what inspires them to be in business.
Welcome to the MyBusiness Podcast, and we've got one of our regular friends that's come back to meet us again today, Joanne Brooks. How are you, Joanne?
I'm very well.
Great to see you. We are talking about a different business today, though. Tell us a bit about the Ducere Global Business School.
Yeah, it's a business that's been around for about 15 years odd. I've known the owner for nearly 25 years, a long time. And Matt Jacobson has been involved in the education sector for a long, long time. I was in business with him in a registered training organisation back then.
I think we spoke about him once before, didn't we?
Yes, we have. And, Matt decided that he really wanted to shake up the university sector globally, hence the Global Business School aspect to his name. A bit about the name, Ducere. It's Latin to lead. Yep. And it's very much connected to the Ducere Foundation. So every dollar that comes into the Ducere Global Business School, a percentage goes to the Ducere Foundation. And really quickly about that is it's a foundation out of Africa that they are educating teachers to educate students to tell their story. So far we've published 22,000 stories in booklets. And so it's helping these young children in schools across Africa to read and write from an English perspective, but also to share their story. And it could be a poem, it could be a paragraph, it can be a long story. And as you probably appreciate, a number of them have suffered trauma. Yeah. And so it's almost a healing process. So there's a huge philanthropic aspect behind the Ducere Global Business School, which I really love. But more about the Ducere Global Business School itself is that what I really am intrigued about, and I've only actively been involved in the Ducere Global Business School since June last year, because Matt reached out to me and he said to me, I really want you to come on board. He's been chasing me for a long time. And I said, well, how would this look? Because if you'd asked me back then as a business owner that, Joanne, you need an MBA, I would have said, what a load of rubbish. I felt that I'd learnt a lot in all the business journey that I've shared to date through this medium, and genuinely didn't think that it was valid for me at all. And I was very blunt with him about that. He said, no, you need to understand more about what this is about. And so I went and did some research. And so the first research I did was, if you're going to do an MBA, I know a lot of people who've done MBAs, and so I wanted to reach out and say, well, why would you do one? What did you get out of it? All that sort of stuff. And sadly, the common thread was, I got 3 letters, MBA, great, I can put that on my business card. What else did you get out of it? A lovely big debt. Did you learn much? I can't say I learned as much as I thought I might, but it took such a long time, Joanne, cost me a lot of money and a lot of effort. I went, well, that's a bit troublesome.
Sad, isn't it?
Very troublesome. So I shared with them the Ducere story, and so that's what I'll share with you now.
Yeah.
So when Matt decided to start this business, he thinks outside the square, is a real entrepreneur, and he thought, well, you know what? Who are people that we would want to hear from who have experiences that would be great for MBA, and they have bachelor's degrees as well, but for me the focus is MBAs. Who would we want to hear from who would have a good story to share and expertise? And so we spent that period of the last 15 years interviewing world leaders, presidents, prime ministers, heads of state, billionaires. To name just a few, Julia Gillard, our female prime minister, Desmond Tutu, the head of the UN, Goldie Hawn, for goodness sake, she has a significant business and philanthropic mind and businesses that she shares. And so what he's done is interviewed 250 plus world leaders, as I said, billionaires, all these heads of state, to create 2,500 videos that are woven through the content of his programs. And all the videos have been curated, so the questions and the answers that he's gained from these people is to meet the learning requirements of the subject you're studying. And so, some people have said to me, yeah, well, Joanne, I could go and Google those people. I mean, absolutely you can, and you should. However, the conversation you'll hear will not be meeting what the learning requirements of what you're studying. So and build your understanding of these people and go and do the Google, but you will not find this library of video content woven through the programs. And I went, that's a really big tick for me as a business owner, entrepreneur. I want to hear what Desmond Tutu went through. I want to hear what Goldie Hawn or Julia Gillard and, the misogyny speech and all that sort of stuff that she went through. I want to hear that story from her.
Yeah.
And so I went, wow, great big tick for me. Love that. The other piece that I know is really relevant for people who are undertaking higher ed education is that there's papers to complete, and that is no different in a Ducere MBA. However, what he wanted to do was remove exams, the need for exams, because I who loves exams? Not many people do. And to sit there as a mature student, because often, we're mature people who are doing an MBA, and to go, I feel as though I'm back at school and now I've got to regurgitate all this stuff out of my brain and get writer's cramp, because who writes a paper anymore? You may be typing. But who enjoys that and who thrives in that environment? Not a lot of people. A lot of people really they freeze, and that's not a comfortable place for you to be. So the interesting thing is he did remove exams out of these programs, but we still need to demonstrate that these people have a capacity and a skill set that they've developed. So whilst he's been travelling around the world interviewing these world leaders, he knocks on the doors of business owners, small and global companies, and he will say to them or ask them the question, do you have a challenge in your business that you would like to have resolved? And these businesses, all businesses have challenges. You think of, the problem with cybersecurity today. All businesses will have a challenge with that. And so they are probably going out to outsource that and spending an awful lot of money to have consultants come in and give them an appraisal of their business and say, this is what you need to do, and let's implement that, and spend a fortune on it. So what Matt Jacobson has done at Ducere is he's spoken to these companies and said, so if you've got a challenge in your business, how about we create a project around that? And we bring in our global MBA students and they work on that project for you. They've got to dip their toes into your business, understand how you work and you think and all that sort of stuff. But they'll put a brief together of what it would look like to solve that problem for you. And that won't cost you anything. We just want the projects, and we want them to be real, and we want them to be live. So the traditional MBAs and bachelor programs will often have a project, but they're often based on, it sounds terrible, based on a 10-year-old FedEx problem. Yep. And what relevance does that have today? And so the projects the students get aligned with are relevant to the industry they're either in today. So if they're in a manufacturing firm and they're a senior manager, they'll get involved in a manufacturing industry project. Or if there's an industry they're dipping that want to get into, we can put them into those as well. So all the projects are relevant to their role that they have today in their business or in their career.
Which must improve engagement and everything like that.
But also the exponential learning, because they're going to be able to look at, like, even if they look in their own business, like if you think about this, if Ducere knocks on the door of your employer and they say, have you got a challenge you need solved? Yes. Okay, let's enroll your staff into these MBAs, let them work on it, but also let's expand it in the offering to our global enrollees and bring them in as a cohort. And this cohort are collaborating, they're networking, they're negotiating amongst themselves.
Building just in that is amazing.
Indeed, but the ROI for that employer, if it's their staff undertaking this program, let alone just having a challenge resolved in their business, it is. I've not heard of anything like that before. And so I really love that concept. So there's projects woven through each of the MBAs. Some of them there's just one, some there's two or three, depending on the size of the MBA. And so this is bringing live project work into businesses you would never thought of. And so one of the ones that I can remember that happened late last year was with Disney out of LA. And they had a HR challenge they needed solved. So an MBA cohort came in, resolved it, presented the case to them and the project, and they implemented it. And so that's pretty neat.
Massive win.
Think of that on your resume that you involved in that. Think of the resume that says that the type of MBA and the people you're listening to and hearing from. And so that, for me, that as a business owner, I can't think of anything better. Like as a small business owner out there, and they're thinking, oh, MBA, really? I don't have time. It's going to cost me a lot of money and effort. But if you can learn from these people, if you can undertake projects, that the learning that you can bring into your own business, if you're involved in a project with a global manufacturing firm and you're a small manufacturer here on the Gold Coast, can you imagine what they're going to learn from that they can then grow and scale their business?
They can implement themselves. It's mind-blowing, really.
It is mind-blowing.
Is there anyone else that does this kind of thing?
Not that I'm aware of, no. As I said, projects are not unusual. It's a normal thing in papers, but they're often based on historical data and case studies and so on. And so, for me, that's a tick and a tick. I love that concept. And so Ducere Global Business School, if you go to their website, is ducere.education. They are a global company. They are not a university. So this is a really interesting piece about them. So what he's done, as Matt's been travelling around the world, is he knocks on the doors of universities. Because what he's done is he's brought together a cohort of entrepreneurial academics who have written the programs. So these are academics who are qualified to deliver university programs, but they're entrepreneurs in their own right. And so these people come with a different mindset as they're creating the content. Build the content, put the videos in, put the projects in. And so we've got programs that are written by entrepreneurs for entrepreneurs and innovative thinking people.
And that must be something that would be highly attractive for those people as well, because they're stuck in a system of the four walls.
Correct.
To be able to show some creativity would be extremely attractive for them.
Exactly. So Matt has created in Ducere Global Business School an entire ecosystem of the university. Yep. So he's got the academics, he's got the reporting and the rigour of compliance and all those things. And how you enrol people. So he's gone around the world and it's been started to knock on doors of universities. So, we've got 2 universities here in Australia, Torrens and New England. Yep. We need an Australian presence here. And so what each university must do to accept an external organisation's courses is put them through a rigorous compliance check, which can take up to 2 years. So they've got to look at all the elements of the learning, that the assessment's correct, the projects are correct and meet all their requirements. And so when a student enrolls, they get the certificate from that particular university, not from Ducere. So then they've got 4 universities out of Europe. Wow. So we've got Wales, London, Paris and Rome. So these universities are all accredited universities and all recognised here in Australia. Yep. So to me, this gives a potential applicant to do an MBA a wider opportunity of undertaking an MBA with the amazing content and how we assess them. But the interesting thing, how we compare Australian to overseas MBAs, and I know you haven't had a question. Do you have a question to ask me? Because I just keep talking.
No, just keep going because I'm just so enthralled by all this.
Awesome. So when we compare an Australian with an overseas or a European MBA, Australian, they're generally around 12 subjects. They are not easy to get into. They have, the eligibility criteria can be challenging. Yeah. The level of experience and holding a bachelor's and those sort of things. The cost of it, like Australia has, I'll be the first to say, we have an amazing global reputation in the education sector, having been involved in it for a long time. Our qualifications in the vet sector and the higher ed in university space is recognised globally. And so it charges accordingly. And the depth and the level of delivery is robust. But Matt has created these programs based on the Australian framework. So it's got that robustness to it. It's got the depth of learning. But when we compare it to an overseas or European MBA, Australian is 12 subjects, European is 6.
Yep.
Half the effort, half the time. But the same content, still written by Ducere entrepreneurial academics, still projects, still video content.
You're still coming out with the same experience.
And still recognised here in Australia, but only 6 subjects, which I think that's
makes a big difference
tick.
because that's going to affect cost and everything like that as well, isn't it?
And indeed it does.
So can I ask a question though, because a lot of people listening to this won't really understand the MBA process or who does an MBA. Just explain that just a little bit and then
indeed.
That might give people
It's a really good question. Who would and why would you want to do an MBA? So industry suggests that corporates expect our senior managers to have an MBA, whether we agree with that or not. It's just the industry standard. So they're looking for the 3 letters. Recruiters are looking for that, all those sort of things. If you want to be on a board, I speak to a lot of business owners that want the experience of being on a board, but their business is not at the level of a corporate level, but they want that experience because it builds their critical thinking and negotiation, all those sort of skills. So those sort of people, there's lots of industry expectations of having qualifications. So, there's absolutely a requirement for those where it sits around a regulation or a licensing requirement of, bachelors and those sort of things. And MBAs are often sought after by our corporate professionals and also business owners, as I say, who want to build and scale their business. They're going for maybe government tenders. It's not a requirement. It looks good for credibility's sake, those sort of things. So, MBAs have a real place to play in the higher end of town, but those people who are looking to play in the bigger game. And so that's why people would do an MBA.
Yep. And so once they make that decision, obviously this is where Ducere becomes involved, because they become a different option for people rather than going just straight to the universities. Have I got that right?
Yeah, exactly right. So the potential student goes and does some Googling, and often their default place might be to go back to the university where they did their bachelor's degree and don't even think anything more of it. Or they go to those wonderful sites like Open Universities, that is an aggregator or a collective of all these universities that are just all on one website. Can be quite overwhelming, going, oh, which one do I choose? And so that's difficult. So the challenge Ducere have is getting the message out to the audience. And, we've had some great inroads. They've been around for 13, 14 years, and they're a global business. But we want to share that story more because of what I've already spoken about how accessible it is and the effort and all that sort of stuff. But as you pointed out and realised, when we're comparing an Australian university, 12 subjects, that's going to take time and effort and take 2 to 3 years, no doubt about it. And I know the number of people that I spoke to who did those programs said, their social life just went to nothing because they don't have the brain space and they've got to participate, all those things. But they did have a significant cost incurred. Now, of course, Australian government supports our people who want to study significantly with the HECS scheme, HECS scheme, where you can get a loan and you pay it off as your salary hits a certain level. And Ducere has access to that for the Australian universities. But there's the price point and the time and effort that is I think is a big gain here for the Ducere students. An average Australian qualification starts at $65,000 for an MBA. The worst I've heard is $300,000. Wow. It's a significant financial commitment. And they may already be paying off their bachelor's degree, potentially. And so there's not many employers that will support, an investment of that much in their staff. So often it's left to the individual to undertake that debt and that cost, and they've got to wear that with their mortgages and the cost of rising living today. That's going to be an absolute challenge, and it has had a massive impact on the enrolments into universities. We know that we see this data, that the enrolment levels have plummeted as a result of the cost of living today. And so when we look at the price points of the Ducere programs, we've got, if I can give you a visual of, we've got Collège de Paris, which is out of France. Now, all our students can go and graduate in the cities in which they do their courses. So who wouldn't want to go to Paris? I know I'd love it.
Yeah, I would too.
I would love it. Rome or London or Wales to undertake their graduation ceremony. So I think of the suite of MBA offers out of Europe as a bronze, gold, silver, gold, platinum range. Yep. And if I can quickly dip into that. Collège de Paris is our bronze, and it's really because of who might do it is where I've allocated that. The quality doesn't change. So a person who might have tackled the Collège de Paris will be that person who needs an MBA, not necessarily looking for a massive learning experience, because what they'll do is, out of 6 subjects, they will consider giving credit for 5 based on your experience. So if we've got people who have been managers for a while, business owners for a while, haven't formalised their qualification, they can look at the suite of subjects and go, yeah, I do this every day. They can apply to have credit or recognition of prior learning, as you would call it here in Australia, without a huge amount of effort. Here's how I demonstrate that I know these things, and undertake one subject and one project. They can get that MBA very efficiently, probably in about 6 months, and it will sit at around, I'm glad you're sitting, $5,000 US.
Compared to 65 to 300,000.
Correct.
We're not even talking percentages, really. It's
still get access to all the videos if you want to go through them. Still get involved in a project, so you do get a learning experience, and you can do all 6 if you want to go down that. But I really love that Collège de Paris are out there to recognise there are so many people who've either started an MBA, never finished it, never done one, got a bachelor's, loads of experience, and would like that and need to do it efficiently in time, cost, and effort.
Yep. I mean, they still have to prove that they've got those efficiencies.
Exactly.
Efficiencies there.
Their skill sets. Yeah, exactly. So that's an incredible offer through College to Parry. So that makes it a bronze. For me, silver is Rome. It's 6 subjects. It's a global MBA. Yep. You undertake the program as it comes. But you can go and graduate in Rome. So all these graduation ceremonies, if I can dip into that, the students get invited to spend the week in the university and they get to be immersed into some immersive learning as they close out their MBA and then attend a wonderful, throw the hat, do the whole thing, right? Bring your family and celebrate. So, and that sits at around $10,000. Accessible. Accessible, right? Then we've got East London. Now, that's been around for 250 years. Our soon-to-be crowned King Charles is the patron.
That's right.
It has great credibility and tenure, and it's got the 6 subjects at all those, and it's an executive MBA, and that sits at about $15,000. Still accessible. Still super accessible.
Something that someone can make a decision on and say, yep, let's do it.
Exactly. So our Wales counterparts, they do the bachelor's programs, and they sit at around about the 13,000. But if I go to the platinum, I'm then going to choose an Australian qualification, being the Torrens Global MBA, and that sits at $35,000, 12 subjects.
Still only around half the price.
Correct. So people will look at each of these university offerings for different reasons. They might absolutely want an Australian university. Well, they can get that, and it's accessible, and we can offer HECS. Yep. These other programs, we can offer payment plans, all those sort of things, but you might. There's a new offer here that is absolutely recognised here in Australia and recognised globally.
You said at the start that Matt wanted to shake up the universities.
Yeah. Do you think he's going to do it?
I think so.
I think he's going to do it.
I think so. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, that we're providing opportunity to people. So when you talk about $65,000, that's a hell of a lot of money in anyone's terms.
For education. It's a lot.
That's right. But this gives people an opportunity to further their qualifications and provide them with a future earning opportunity as well.
Correct.
And new experiences that they can do.
Exactly.
For a fraction of the amount.
And you make a really good point there. The statistics suggest here in Australia that if somebody who does an MBA, within 4 years of completing, their salary will go up 40%.
Wow.
And that's through Australian Bureau of Statistics. Yep. And so, the return on investment of undertaking something that sits between $5,000 and $35,000, and your salary is going to go up by about 40%. These people are probably sitting on $100,000 plus, most likely, because of the level they're already in.
So within that, it's paid for it within that time.
Paid for itself
easily.
Yeah.
So what do people need to? If somebody's sitting there and they're thinking, do I want to do an MBA? Do I not want to do an MBA? I really do want to do one.
Yeah.
The first place they should go would be Ducere's website.
Come to my website. If they go to, absolutely go to Ducere to do some homework.
Yep.
They've got an amazing machine sitting behind that. I represent them as an external person. So if they want to know, if somebody is listening to this and want to know more, just go to my Navigate website, click on the button to call Joe or book an appointment.
I love that button too. I see it every time. One day when I'm on your website, because I've been there a few times, I'm going to just click the button just to see what happens.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
It does work. Contact me directly is the easiest way, because otherwise they're going to go through a myriad of places, call centres and all that sort of stuff. And they've got a great machine. But
we've got someone
speak to me
local
direct.
here.
Absolutely. Talk to me direct.
Local is best with everything, and if anyone's listened to this or they've seen any of your businesses, I know how easy you are to communicate with and talk to.
Exactly.
Tell them to navigate. How to get to Navigate?
NAVIG8BIZ.com.
That's 8 the number.
The digit. Yes.
So, Joe, time has flown.
Is it time already?
We've probably gone a little bit over. We might have someone coming in for the videos in a moment to restart them, but it's been absolutely brilliant to have you in again.
Thank you.
Ducere Global Business School is something now that I can say I know about.
Yeah.
And anyone that's listened to this can say they know about it. So
exactly.
If you've got any questions, go and talk to Joe, navigatebiz.com. That's but we'll have links on the YouTube and in our socials as well. So go and have a chat to her, because it could be the start of a hell of a
something
new
amazing.
Experience. Yeah.
Indeed.
We'll see you again soon.
Thank you. You will.
Excellent. Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the My Business Podcast, brought to you by Media 8 on the Podfire platform. If you want to be on our podcast, please reach out to the team on all our socials at mybusiness.pod.